I want to thank everyone for joining today's webinar. My name is Sierra Jones, and I'm the Marketing Coordinator here at Biz Technology Solutions. Casey Cook, Technology Strategist, will be presenting on the 3 technologies you need to ensure that your remote staff is engaged. We want to invite you to ask questions throughout the webinar, and you can do so in the chat box on the right of your screen. We will also be asking a few poll questions throughout the webinar and would love for you to participate. And at this time, I will go ahead and pass things over to Casey.
Thanks, Sierra. So like she mentioned, we're going to go over 3 technologies that can help ensure that your remote staff are engaged. I know with COVID and the pandemic taking place, a lot of people are working remotely, and it's a huge change for a lot of people, shifting from being in an office to working from home. There's a lot more distractions, which I think people are aware of, and we're kind of allowing, to have kids and dogs and everything, on the video calls with us, but trying to find a way that we make sure to keep those employees engaged, so they're not really wasting time on other things or social media because we don't have insight into what they're doing a lot of the time when they're remote. So a little bit about BizTech. We are a managed service provider, and we usually work with or alongside IT departments, or we act as your IT department. And we work to support, manage, and streamline the IT for our clients. We were founded in 2001, so we've been together for our business for 20 years. Founded by Mike and Retta Shafani, 2 brothers, and we have 3 locations in Mooresville, Charlotte, and in Greensboro. So my name is Casey Cook. I'm one of the technology strategists at BizTech. I've been with BizTech for about 8 years, going on 8 years now. I've been in IT for a little bit longer, with a master's degree in information technology management, and then a few random certifications in cloud computing and cybersecurity. So the 3 technologies that we are going to highlight today are Office 365, which has recently been renamed to Microsoft 365, which I'll go over a little bit here in future slides, which is kind of Microsoft's flagship offering as far as Office now. You can still buy, just plain Microsoft Office, but for what you get and what's included with Office 365, or sorry, Microsoft 365, I definitely think that's kind of the best option now. So we're going to go over at least utilization and making sure we're using some of those tools to engage our employees. Then we're going to take a look at Time Doctor. So a Time Doctor is a tool that will measure and track your employees just to see, how productive they're being. You can even kind of allow them to track their time against specific clients or specific projects, and then that kind of helps you with billing, if you wanted to bill those clients for that time. And that's kind of keeping our employees productive. And then number 3 is Office Vibe, and this kind of helps with engagement. So this is allowing our employees to submit kind of anonymous feedback and take surveys so that we can keep a pulse on the actual morale of the company and of our employees. So going a little bit more in depth on the topics we're actually going to cover, those were the 3 technologies, but we're going to take a look at, how do we measure and track what areas of Office 365, or again, Microsoft 365, are underutilized. So we can do that by looking at the admin portal and looking at a few usage reports. And we also have a Power BI dashboard, which comes free with Microsoft 365 that allows us to kind of look at a little bit more in depth at the usage analytics of that platform. Next, we're going to talk a little bit more about maximizing the collaboration with Office 365 using tools like Teams, OneDrive and SharePoint, Planner and To-Do, and Microsoft Whiteboard, which is a fairly recent addition, but it's a really cool one that I'll hopefully can show you guys and help you with maximizing Office 365. And then lastly, we're going to go over managing and monitoring our remote employees. And we'll talk about those 2 other technologies, Time Doctor and Office Vibe. We'll go over a little bit on video huddles and how we can do that inside of Microsoft Teams, which again, because everybody's remote, it's always helpful to kind of get everybody in the same room and, at least be able to see each other. And then one-on-ones, which have become more important than ever, just because again, our employees may feel like they're missing that social interaction. So if you have one-on-ones with their managers, I work across teams at BizTech, so I have one-on-ones with 2 different managers, but it allows me to kind of keep on task and make sure I'm doing what they're expecting and to manage expectations for myself as well. So to start with, we're going to take a look at bad habits of remote employees. And before we go over those bad habits, I want to kind of touch on a story that I recently found that I think kind of drives the point home about this. So the story has to do with John Patterson. He's from Dayton, Ohio, and was alive at least in the 1800s. So John had opened a small supply store for coal miners that had little competition. So there's not a whole lot of competition there. And they had a steady stream of customers, but for some reason, he just continued to have issues with making money. So eventually, John realized that his employees were actually stealing money from him. So now in the 1800s, employee theft was kind of a common problem, I guess, because again, you have these cash drawers, but receipts were kept in that drawer, and with them, they could easily be altered or just kind of thrown away. There were no, security cameras to keep an eye on employees. There was no software to track those transactions. We didn't have QuickBooks back in the 1800s. So unless you were willing to kind of hover over your employees and watch them for every minute of the day, it was going to be difficult to prevent that theft from taking place. So later, John Patterson came across an advertisement for a new invention called Riddy's Incorruptible Cashier. So this was designed by another guy in Dayton, Ohio, named James Riddy, and he actually invented this machine, which was the first kind of cash register. Which, this machine automatically locked the cash drawer so that cash and receipts were locked inside after each transaction. John ended up buying 2 of these for $50 each, and employees' theft kind of just disappeared overnight because of this. So in the next 6 months following that, he had struggled with making money for how many years. But the 6 months following the installation of these cash registers, he went from making little to no money to $5,000 in profit, which back in the 1800s, that's the equivalent of about $100,000 today in 6 months. So John Patterson kind of went on to buy the rights to that machine, and then he opened a brand new company called National Cash Register Company. And 2 years later, they had over 1,000 employees. So, I mean, this kind of went to another business and kind of took off from there. And the real brilliance of the cash register was not that it was that it automated ethical behavior. So it made it almost impossible for the employees to steal money from the company. And rather than trying to just change the motivations of those employees, he just, again, made it difficult or almost impossible for them to steal money. So we're kind of making sure that they're automating those preferred behaviors. I just feel like this is an important lesson, from this story, because this applies to remote working habits and behaviors as well. The best way to break a bad habit is to make it, difficult or impossible to do. And the best way to create a good habit is to automate it so we don't really have to think about it. So the 6 habits that are bad habits of remote employees. Number 1 being they won't adapt or adjust to remote technology. And again, like I mentioned, a lot of people are being moved from an office to working from home. And so a lot of them, maybe they're older, maybe they just struggle with technology. A lot of times it's hard for them to adapt and just kind of adopt those technologies because there hasn't maybe been a whole lot of training in place. It was such a quick push to working from home that a lot of people didn't get that training. Another one is trying to multitask during meetings. So this is a common issue that I think we even run to at BizTech, where you have a lot going on. You're trying to manage expectations with a bunch of people. So during meetings, you may be focusing on 3 different things or so. And this is, again, a bad habit. Number 3 is they don't know that there's actually a mute button. I don't know if you've had this experience. I've seen multiple videos of people going to the bathroom and forgetting to put themselves on mute. So again, you hear the whole escapade take place while they're in the bathroom. And then number 4, don't communicate when they are and aren't available, which again, this can be difficult because I'm sure we still expect employees to take lunches and our coworkers to take breaks and stuff, whether that be going to take a lunch or maybe they have to go get oil changed, who knows. But having a way to communicate when you are and are not available. Number 5 is they don't really respect the work-life balance. Because it's a lot harder now because our work and life balance are kind of mixed together, where you maybe have an office that you're working in, but then you go one room over and then, okay, and now I'm supposed to be, my life takes place here. And so a lot of times people will come back to that same office and a lot of times they may start working again. And there's a lot of people that maybe expect that, maybe they're expecting to, hey, I can come in and out throughout the day. Maybe I'm working from 7 to 7, but I'll take a lot of breaks in between. That's something that we kind of have to set expectations for with our employees and maybe have new policies in place that kind of cover that. And then number 6, you have the social media slacker, meaning that instead of actually working, maybe they have a web browser open and they're scrolling through Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, or potentially just watching Netflix all day while they sit there and pretend like they're working. So that's why we have these 3 technologies that we're going to kind of cover that help eliminate some of those bad habits. So number one is kind of looking at the usage of our Microsoft 365 technologies. So with Microsoft 365, again, there are a few kind of success factors we've found with clients that help to drive adoption. So you can see here the little picture on the right side. This is just kind of showing the admin portal of Microsoft 365. And from here, we can go and see what technologies are kind of being used, which ones are being used more frequently. This screenshot is actually of one of my demo accounts, so it doesn't look like there's too much going on there. But still, we can see email activity, and we can actually dive into that a little bit deeper and look at who are the most, or the users that are sending the most emails or receiving the most emails. Even in Teams, we can find those that are most active. So kind of defining a vision is that number one success factor. If we're trying to automate or defeat some of those bad habits, we need to have a vision in place of how we're going to do that. How are you going to use this technology to kind of fight against those? And that's going to depend on your vertical and on your company and the policies and stuff that you have in place. But having that vision laid out and then communicating that to everybody is definitely going to help to drive adoption for some of these. The second one is supportive leadership. So is your senior leadership encouraging the use of these technologies? Again, a lot of times the senior leadership are going to be a little bit more experienced, meaning that they're going to be a little bit older, maybe a little less not wanting to pick up new technologies. But we still need them to kind of pick it up because, again, if they're using it, it's going to force everybody else to use it. So it's always good to kind of make sure that, hey, are you guys using these technologies? Maybe they need more training to kind of help that because, again, if they start using it, it's going to have that trickle-down effect to where everybody else is. Next, I had mentioned the Power BI dashboard that we can get for free. So again, using Microsoft 365, we could get the Power BI free license. And with a couple clicks, as long as you have the global admin credentials, we can get this Power BI dashboard up and kind of look at all the same factors that we had with the admin portal dashboard. But this allows us to drill down a little bit deeper, so we can click on any of these here and look at the users and everything that are active across our environment. And so the third success factor is end user training. And so everybody learns differently, so it's important to have just kind of different formats of training, whether that be videos or just kind of maybe a cheat sheet or something that we can send to employees, or maybe some of them just like to learn by using. So, hey, here's this Microsoft Teams, go click around, have fun with it. If you learn something new, feel free to kind of teach your coworkers. And that is another way that can kind of help to drive success too, is when you have these end users that are trained, a lot of times you'll have people that are more willing to pick it up and kind of learn on their own time, and then they can help others to learn and help them troubleshoot some issues that they may run into. And lastly is making sure that we raise awareness for these. So making sure that we put out maybe emails saying, hey, we're going to move to Microsoft Teams. Maybe we're changing policies to where all video meetings are going to be inside of Teams for the time being, and then putting up posters, videos, whatever, making sure that there's multiple formats so that people are aware of that, hey, we're trying to make this shift in our technology use. So we kind of touched on Microsoft Teams a little bit. Just to explain what it is, Microsoft Teams is kind of a single pane of glass for all of the Office 365 services. Not all of them can be used from Teams, but I would say a good majority of them can. So it kind of provides a single application where you can access all those services like SharePoint and OneDrive. Even now you can use Planner. They're coming out with a new feature called Tasks, which will pull Planner tasks and to-dos, and even our Outlook tasks into one screen inside of Microsoft Teams. And one of the things I usually like to stress to clients is, when you're trying to approach, adoption with Microsoft Teams, is kind of use the how do you eat an elephant mindset. So start with little bits and pieces and then kind of grow from there. So the first one that I usually recommend is kind of starting with chat and communication with each other. Being able to chat, talk in groups, talk inside of each team, just kind of get a feel for it, because again, the users can chat with each other. They don't have to run down to each person's office. And obviously when we're working remotely, it makes it a little bit easier to communicate back and forth with single people or actually teams of people. And then next, look to move to video calls and meetings. I'm sure a lot of people have other platforms that they may or may not be using for that. You can look to have video calls, maybe get away from Zoom or WebEx and kind of move all of those to Teams, because again, there's a lot of services that can be used inside of Teams that make that a little bit more collaborative. And next, that's where you can look to work on collaborating on documents and notebooks. So OneNote being kind of the notes section, or if you have documents like Word documents or Excel spreadsheets, we can open up those inside of Teams and have multiple people kind of reviewing it or going over it at the same time and making changes. And then once all of those are kind of accepted and everybody's cool with that, that's where we can start to look at integrating a lot of other applications. Because again, most businesses have probably a handful of applications that they use during a normal day. Whether they are all inside of Microsoft Teams or not isn't really important because most of them will integrate in some form or fashion with Teams. And we can kind of set up those integrations so that way we can kind of streamline some of those workflows and processes. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about OneDrive and SharePoint. Put files for all because again, everybody kind of has their little portion of storage that they can use inside of Office 365. So SharePoint is kind of meant to be the collaborative part where we can share and manage content. This is where you'll have each team. So even inside of Microsoft Teams, when you're sharing and collaborating on documents there, it's actually stored in a SharePoint site collection on the back end. And all of those files being there makes them easy to access. And then SharePoint, all those files can be accessed from any device, as long as it has a web browser. So that's where Android, iOS, and iPad, Apple, Mac, Linux, all of these, as long as you have a web browser and have internet access, we can open those files and quickly start making changes, no matter where we are in the world. And then OneDrive kind of acts as your My Documents. I like to tell people where this is your kind of your corner of the globe, so to speak, as far as Microsoft 365 is concerned, where I can store all my personal documents. And if you have a Windows 10 computer, it's actually very easy to kind of back up your entire computer using OneDrive, which is very helpful, especially if you, let's say, are traveling and you lose your laptop or it breaks or something, we can still have access to all those files and then share them out as we need to with some of our coworkers. Next is Microsoft Planner and Microsoft To Do. So Planner is kind of a Microsoft's version of a project or basic project management system. So it's very similar to products like Trello or there's all sorts of them out there now like Monday.com. I know Basecamp is one. It kind of allows you to have a kind of collaborative effort of grouping tasks and projects into buckets. So they call it a bucket. So like in this screenshot here, you see we have in the first kind of line, you have to do, presentation, press, venue, and team travel. These are what we call buckets. And from there, we can create all those tasks. We can attach documents to them. We can set due dates. We can add labels. We can assign people to them and then allow them to kind of work on those documents. So again, it's a high level project management at a basic level. And you can even have chats and everything there. And then I had kind of mentioned the tasks feature that is being added to Microsoft Teams. And so that's where with the iPhone there and the tablet down at the bottom, that's showing off that kind of feature where no matter if you assign users a task in To Do or Planner, or even if you flag an email in your Outlook, it's actually going to show those as tasks into this new tab in Teams. I think they're going to roll out that by the end of the year. So I think that'll be kind of cool because I know at BizTech, that's one thing where we are very much using Planner and To Do. It just makes it easier to have that task management and be able to, with Microsoft To Do, they had bought out Wunderlist, which was an old task manager. But with theirs, again, it's very simple to just kind of create lists of tasks. We can add simple steps, so steps to each one are subtasks. We can add due dates and even set reminders so we get reminded on our phone or wherever when those tasks are up for review. Next is Microsoft Whiteboard. And like I mentioned earlier, this is kind of a newer platform or application that's been added to Microsoft 365. And there's a couple different ways that we can use this. So inside of Microsoft Teams, if you go to share your screen or share a document or something, you will see over on the far right-hand side that it allows you to choose Whiteboard. And that's what you're seeing here. So if you look at this screenshot, you'll see, looking around the outside edges that we're actually inside of a Teams meeting right now, but we're looking at kind of this infinite canvas that is Microsoft Whiteboard. And this allows multiple people to kind of brainstorm and ideate over different things, all from this one screen. So you can have multiple people that have this open. There's a Windows and a mobile application that you can download as well called Microsoft Whiteboard. So I don't even need to have Teams open. I can open it up on my iPhone and start kind of collaborating with other users as well. And this allows you to draw. We can add sketches and sticky notes, we can add pictures, just again, kind of an infinite canvas to brainstorm and collaborate on. So next I want to talk about Time Doctor. Time Doctor is an application that kind of allows you to track the productivity of your users. Like I mentioned, we can track time that is spent on specific applications or specific projects. So when we're tracking users' times, we can assign it to clients or projects if we want to kind of track the time spent on that specific client or project. This, you can see the screenshots here where I actually kind of did a little test on myself. You can see I was 60% productive. I think it's because it doesn't count Outlook as being very productive. I guess emailing isn't great right now. And it can actually take screenshots of what I'm working on. So this is something that you can push out silently to your users to where we're actually going to track them. Maybe we tell them that we're going to do it. I don't know. It's up to you. But let's say you just want to track your productivity to make sure that they're staying productive and not kind of wasting your time or stealing time from the company. We can track what they're doing, what they're working on. And we can also install an interactive application, which allows them to track their time. So if there is a task or project they're working on, they can go to the application, click start, and it's going to start counting their time towards that project while they work on it. I've looked at some of those in the past. I don't know how well they work because, again, if somebody is interrupted by a dog or something needing to go out, again, they're putting time towards this project, which they may or may not be working on. But again, we can see how engaged our users are by using something like Time Doctor. Again, this is cross-platform, so it works across mobile devices, tablets, Windows, Mac computers, any device that we can install it on. And even the silent application we can install via Microsoft Windows only. Next, we're going to talk about Office Vibe. So this allows you to kind of keep up to date on your team's morale. So what it does is we can have short surveys, anonymous surveys, sent to all our employees, allowing them to kind of answer a few questions and submit feedback anonymously too, which allows you to kind of keep a pulse on your employees. This is something we use at BizTech, and I think it's been helpful in kind of figuring out, okay, where are we lacking? Because Office Vibe has 10 key metrics that they're kind of helping to keep track of so you can focus on improving those. You can see from the screenshot here, there's personal growth, ambassadorship, feedback, recognition. I'm not going to go over from there, but you can see it kind of gives you a rating based on what your employees are saying. And I feel like with a remote workforce, this is definitely important because we want to make sure that our employees are engaged. I'm sure if you see one person, again, it's going to be anonymous. We may not know who exactly it is, but you should be able to kind of key in on who is not happy with work right now. Based on their reactions. You can see the screenshots here with the cat. It's asking, does your work environment allow you to work distraction-free when you need to? We can kind of have this little slider button that we move up and down. You see it changes the picture based on what you're going to respond. And so I think that's just very helpful in keeping a pulse on what's going on with your company and how the morale is with each employee as well. So next I want to touch on video huddles. So Microsoft Teams is another feature that they're going to be rolling out is something called Together Mode. You can see kind of a preview of what that looks like here. Because one of the biggest things is, with all the virtual meetings that we're having now working from home, a lot of people just feel less connected and they're more fatigued by having all these different video meetings because a lot of times some people won't have their video on, some people will. If there's a policy there, we definitely recommend having video on because, again, it pushes for that interaction. Excuse me. And so this Together mode is supposed to kind of help combat some of those things, where no matter how many people are in that actual meeting, you can see where it kind of tries to take you and put you into this little amphitheater here. So it looks like everybody's in the same room. We can wave, we can say hi to each other, instead of just having little blocks of videos. I know Microsoft Teams is rolling out a 7x7 video, so soon you'll be able to have 49 people that show up next to each other. But I think this is kind of a cool thing that they're adding. I know I had it on one of the other slides, which I didn't touch on. Sorry, I'm going to go back here. But one of the features on this one too is you see there's the 49 people that are on it. They're actually adding a feature too that allows you to customize the layout. So you can see here, you can have video showing while you're also presenting a PowerPoint. We can kind of customize who shows up on the screen. And I think when you're the actual meeting holder or the presenter, you can kind of control the layout that everybody sees. So again, another cool feature that they're adding to Microsoft Teams. And the last one is one-on-one meetings. So having that dedicated time with a manager to kind of run over, whatever, whether it's, issues at home, issues with certain tasks that they're having, this just kind of sets aside time that allows them to go over the tasks that each employee is having, whether it even involves coaching, mentoring, just kind of venting about their day or something. Because this is something I've found very, very important, because even like our managers, every employee is involved in so many video meetings and stuff now. I know that we've had issues with scheduling, just being able to have back-to-back-to-back meetings. It makes it difficult to kind of get things done or even be able to focus and get response from your managers on specific tasks. So I feel like those one-on-one meetings have become even more important now, just to make sure that employees are being engaged and they're not having issues with their working from home. And I've put a link here that provides a guide. So this is actually from Office 5, but it has a guide to providing better one-on-one meetings. So lastly, I just kind of wanted to touch on some pricing for the technologies that we talked about. So like I mentioned, Microsoft 365 has recently changed from Office 365. You can see kind of in the screenshot here, which here I can use my nifty laser pointer. You can see it actually will tell you what the new names are based on the old names. So before, we had Business Essentials, Business Premium. Microsoft 365 was a thing before, but it just included a Windows 10 license with it. They now have changed that to Business Premium, and then changed the Office 365 versions to Basic and Standard. So the prices haven't really changed there, but again, the name change is kind of a thing, because that's throwing people for a loop. And then if you are on the enterprise plans, those have not really changed a whole lot. They're still E3 and E5. They've just changed to Microsoft 365, but they also have the frontline workers. So this used to be called F1. They've now changed it to F3. And again, that's a cheaper price, but it has a little less feature set and a little bit more slimmed down. It has a few more limitations. But if you have a lot of kind of first line workers, whether they're nurses or somebody that doesn't really use computer a whole lot, that's where they would use the F3 license. Next is Time Doctor. So they do have a 14-day free trial, I think, if you wanted to kind of try it out on a few of your employees, just to see, may this be something we could use. You can see they have a couple different pricing tiers there, and then a little different feature set based on the price. Sorry about that. And then Office Vibe. So Office Vibe is actually free for a limited feature set, and then it's $4 per user per month for the premium feature set. And then I kind of laid out some of the features there that are and aren't included. So this is something where if you just wanted to, again, get a little pulse on some of your employees, we can actually send that out for free to a majority of them before we run into limitations. All right, so next I just want to talk about the offering that we're having for this webinar. So a free Microsoft 365 adoption consultation. And this is just meant to be kind of a consultation with you or whoever you want at your company to kind of figure out, hey, we're maybe using Microsoft Teams, but we want to figure out how to adopt OneDrive and SharePoint across all our users. Or we're using Teams and OneDrive and SharePoint, but hey, we want to figure out how can we use Whiteboard to the best of our ability, or maybe implement Planner in To-Do. So this is something where we can sit down, look at some of the applications that you're using, and then kind of help drive adoption towards those. We have a lot of resources that we can use to help with that and drive adoption for your users. So you can go to the link there on the screen to sign up for that. And you also have the email down below there if you can send an email to info@biztechnologysolutions.com and get more information on that.